So I'm working on a new project. I've been experimenting with using AI as a part of my development workflow for quite a while now. And I think I've got a little bit of a system using Claude and Perplexity and some other tools locally to kind of accelerate the process of even writing my code. Um, and I know that a lot of people are kind of into this right now, and I wanted to jump in and weigh in with my process, and maybe it'll help you out. So let's see where to begin. I've just started the project, uh, and I've started it in much the same way that I would start any software project. I would go to uh, the person who needs the software the most, and I would ask them questions about what they need out of the software. What are their goals? What are the jobs that it needs to do for them? Because that's kind of the point of software is you want to delegate something to a computer, right? So I would go to the source and talk to them. Now, in this case, the source is me. This is a personal project, scratching a personal itch. So that's where AI really shines for me from the get go of a project. You can go to it and use it as a sounding board to get you out of your own head and start thinking about strictly the user perspective. Because I know for myself, as a programmer, it's so easy to get into that mode too quickly before you've already kind of figured out what's the point of this thing anyway. So, if the purpose of your use of AI is to develop a better product faster, I think that would be everybody's goal most of the time. Make something better and make it faster. That's the ideal, right? That's kind of the lean methodology in a nutshell, if you know anything about that. Um, let's see. So here's my process. The idea started with a Perplexity search. Perplexity is kind of an AI tool that reads search results from the internet and summarizes them for you and provides links so that you can go do research at its source. But I found it to be extremely helpful for all kinds of questions. Basically, anything I throw at it, it's got something helpful to add. And it's way faster than anything like Google uh, because you don't have to click any links. It provides a fairly comprehensive summary, um, and you can branch out from there. So, for this idea, I've been learning the mandolin, and as I've been learning the mandolin and trying to uh, get to where I can join like a bluegrass jam session, I've been trying to learn just a little bit of basic improvisation, or at least that would be the goal. But I've had to start with much more elementary things. So I asked Perplexity to give me a plan. And by the way, this is just the free version of Perplexity. If you end up using it really heavily, you're going to run out of the free limits. But if you've just got a few questions a day, it handles them like a champ and it's free. So just throwing that little plug out there. So as you can see, it spits out a bunch of ideas. It's kind of typical of these AIs that summarize things. The AIs aren't really experts. They're not teachers. They're not going to necessarily give you something that you can act on immediately. But if you read these and apply a little bit of critical thinking and intelligence, you can come up with some actual action steps for yourself. But I thought, why not copy what's in here and move it over to Claude to have a conversation with it? So that's what I did. I copied the text out of Perplexity, um, and just said the first thing that came to mind to Claude. And Claude came up with a little bit more of a concrete practice plan, which is kind of neat. G, C, and D major scales. I didn't even tell it bluegrass, but I guess I told it mandolin, and those are pretty basic scales for bluegrass on any instrument, and particularly mandolin. So, except I'm surprised A major isn't in there. Anyway, learn the corresponding major arpeggios, yada yada. I mean, it's good advice. Learn the chord progressions, um, things like that. So, since I've been on a track of trying to use AI in my development process and see where it fits the best, um, I moved on to the next step in that process because I had the idea: what if I made an app to help kind of track and um, track your progress as you're learning an instrument, particularly the way that I want to learn an instrument, which would be not necessarily learning. I do want to learn a lot of tunes, and so I want to track that, but I also want to learn theory and concepts, particularly how it applies to the fretboard of the mandolin. So, um, and I just haven't, there's probably apps out there that do it, but this is a good example for us to build. So let's see. Um, yeah, that's that message. So I told it my intent to build software. I've had pretty good success with both OpenAI and Claude, conversing with it about software in this event storm terminology. Read up on it if you don't know about event storming and you're a software developer. It's a pretty interesting way to get a variety of people together in a room with like a whiteboard or something, or even with a online tool, collaborative tool, to plan out and decide what features should be in your software. I'm not going to get into it. You can read about it if you want. It's just kind of a cue to Claude to speak my language because I'm already familiar with that. That's really the only reason I even mention it. So I tell it, with all this plan in mind, what if I wanted to track that with software? So it creates this event storm. Um, it's kind of hard to read. I'll zoom in a little bit. So you can see it's got these blue, yellow, and green things. Complete ear training completed, ear training exercise. Okay. So that may not make a whole lot of sense to you if you're not familiar with event storming. But you can see it's color coding things. So events in the system are yellow, commands are blue, aggregates, that's like concrete things, concepts. If you're a Rails developer, that would be a model, um, maybe, probably, or a group of models, right? Clusters of domain objects, okay? So, again, I don't want to get too down in the details. That's just me personally. That's how I like to see this output. And I can see it and get kind of wrap my mind around, okay, this is how the AI is thinking about it. Does that match up with how I think about it? And it had a few interesting ideas that kind of surprised me along the way and made me think a little bit deeper. And that's the whole point of this exercise in the first place. So, and again, this is only what 5 minutes into the whole process, and I've got kind of a plan for building software already. Um, then I asked it to identify common patterns and abstractions, um, implying that it should start thinking about how this is going to look in code. Okay, so it gives me some Python. Um, I guess that's kind of the default language. Some models there. So I think look at it. I kind of glance at it, see if it feels about right. I notice it's missing something here, so I continue the conversation. Patterns and abstractions. So we add some things. I tell it should probably allow users to add like a custom type. We don't want to limit them to just scales when they want to do arpeggios, right? So they need to be able to kind of expand that a little bit. And they may have a teacher who has a very particular style of teaching that they need to accommodate. So um, that's kind of the flavor. It gives you a flavor of the conversation that I'm having with the AI here. So now I ask it to describe another feature, how they'll create a practice goal, because I noticed that was missing. Again, there's a little bit of back and forth. Nothing too fancy here. No crazy prompt engineering. It's just plain English, the way that I would talk to anybody. So now I ask it to make an MVP domain diagram in the style of event storming. Um, then I ask it to make kind of a summary of the data structures and whatnot. So it does that. Then I thought I'd take it even a step further and just get a feel for how it would start to build a Rails app off of this. So you can see it starts all the way from a Rails new, tells you how to get started with user authentication and things like that. It's got a few opinions that differ from mine, but it's if you're just starting out, that probably doesn't matter as much. It's most likely drawing from what is very popular, and it's going to be okay. You're gonna do okay with that. Um, so I get a little more back and forth, awkward wording. I asked it to rename something, regenerate the Rails plan, and finally ended up with uh, something that looked reasonable. So then I asked it to create wireframes for the MVP. Simple as that. And it generated, you can see the code, a little React component thingy. It's got all the kind of major components that we discussed. And it lets me click around on it and I can get a feel for how it would work for the user. I could even ask it to start implementing more of this if I wanted to. But it seems more or less okay. It did make me think of some things that I forgot. But as this says, long chats cause you to reach your usage limits faster. I'm probably going to compile some of this information, the refined outputs, maybe put it in a project, and I can show you how I do that. And then I can start having a conversation with the project and iterating on it from there.